I love working with authors. I love the creative process, but there is something really special about even seeing the first, you probably remember this too, Lori, seeing the first time that it's typeset, the way that it will appear in a book. That is
Mhm.
such a powerful moment. And it's a real book. It's not just a Word document anymore. And
Yes.
having the page numbers, and then this one having all those special features with the journal pages and the questions and the little footprints with Fred and all those special kind of little details are so fun to see in print.
Welcome to the Journey with the Giant podcast. I am Robert Prince, and I'm so glad you're joining us for this series inspired by the upcoming book, Journey with the Giant. Choose your guide, pursue your purpose, and grow in your walk with God, by author and spiritual director Lori G. Melton. In this series, we're exploring the unique and life-giving practice of walking with the giant of the faith, learning from the great cloud of witnesses whose stories still shape our own spiritual journeys today. Today's episode is a special one. It was originally recorded live during a Zoom gathering with our Journey with the Giant book launch team. It was so good, we wanted to share it with you publicly as well. We think you'll love hearing the story of how the book was shaped. We actually had the privilege of hosting Leslie Calhoun, Lori's editor. Leslie is an associate editor with Ink and Willow, Waterbrook, and other imprints of the Penguin Random House Christian line. She's passionate about helping authors bring faith-filled stories to life that inspire readers to grow spiritually and to live with purpose. As you'll hear, Leslie's journey toward becoming an editor started long before she imagined working in publishing. She grew up surrounded by books and was already giving feedback on manuscripts even as a child. Her love for words and her deep care for authors shine through as she and Lori talk about the creative process behind Journey with the Giant. I'm especially looking forward to you hearing a few moments in this conversation, like when Leslie describes what makes a book timeless and evergreen, and how she encouraged Lori to write in a way that helps readers discover their own epiphanies along the way, not just read about Lori's experiences. So whether you're an aspiring writer, a reader curious about how books are born, or simply someone who loves seeing how God weaves stories together, you are in for something really special today. Let's join this conversation between Lori and Leslie now, and then Lori and I will be back to discuss the episode a little more at the end.
Leslie, as we open this up, I just love for you to just tell us a little bit about yourself and your journey towards becoming an editor at Ink and Willow. What was that like?
Yeah, so kind of like you said in the bio, thank you so much for that introduction. So excited to be here with all of you tonight. Um, my grandparents owned a publishing company when I was growing up. So they would send me a really small indie publisher down in New Orleans. And they would send me, manuscripts to get my thought on, especially if they were for younger kids, to get would you read this? Would you like a book like this? So from way back when I was in middle school, I was kind of having the editorial eye of looking at potential books just kind of on the side for fun. And I just love to read. So never really thought it would be my career, but just as things went on, as time passed, and I went to school for English and creative writing, and I thought, well, crafting books is such an important and major part of what my experience has been so far. So after I left London for my MFA, I came back to the US and started applying to publishing jobs. And I thought most of them were in New York. I thought that's where kind of the hub of publishing was. But then I found that there are a bunch in Colorado Springs. There's a lot of Christian publishing here. And I got a job at Penguin Random House. So yeah, then I ended up here and I started actually in marketing publicity before, and they always say once you gotta get your foot in the door in publishing first, and then you can kind of work your way up from there. So I always knew editing was my passion. I'd done editorial internships throughout school. Like I said, kind of that really fine eye for detail and crafting stories has always been kind of an important part of how I appreciate books and reading. So the marketing side of things was a little bit more of a challenge for me, but I appreciate the experience because it's helped me work with authors like Lori and kind of give tips on, because you asked me some marketing questions before we got to our official time with the marketing team, and I was able to kind of give you some direction. But then, yeah, I switched over to editorial, and that's where my passion and love really is, because I love working with authors like Lori. That's definitely what my favorite part of the job is.
Yeah, yeah, and you're good at it and patient. Oh my goodness. All the rounds, all the whining. I think that's the hardest part probably. Like, I can't do this. You can do this. So what does being an editor look like day to day? What does that look like?
Yeah. So I think the movies often portray editing as you get to read books all the time and you're reading manuscripts, and kind of that's definitely a part of it. But often the day-to-day part can be emails, meetings, more of the admin type of stuff, like making sure that we have materials ready for internal meetings when we're pitching to our sales team, to sort of tell them like, okay, this great book is coming and this is what it's about and this is how you can frame it to pitch it to your accounts. And so those sorts of like more admin type pieces of the job. And then if we're lucky, we can get some editing done. And so yeah, then that's kind of another bulk of the job as well, is going through manuscripts. Lori knows this, but I tell authors that we typically do what's called a developmental edit first. So the author will send the kind of rough draft manuscript to me as the editor or any other editor, and we would go through it I would go through it and kind of do big picture, like, this chapter should go over here, or you're using the I voice a lot more. We try to talk to the reader, those big picture sort of things, and then that goes back to the author. And then it may go back and forth a few rounds, or it could just be one round. And then we do a round of what's called line editing, which is more of what we think of when we think of an editor. It's like, oh, you fix the commas and the periods, and so there's a lot that happens before that stage. And then it goes to a copy editor who's sort of the expert on all the little tiny details that both the author and I might have missed. But I think your copy edit was really clean, Lori, if I remember correctly. We did a good job. We were catching everything before. So yeah, that's kind of a nutshell of what the editing role is on an average week.
Yeah. And tell them how many books you work on at one time. This is interesting. Yeah, just the mental space. I remember when we were working on Journey with the Giant, you had probably 3 or 4 going. And I thought, how can you focus on this many different things? Because you were putting major effort into Journey with the Giant at the same time as you were putting effort into those other books. So I'm sure that you grow in that skill, but that is a huge talent, gift, skill.
Oh, it's fun. It's fun and they're also different. So it's not like I would never get an author confused with another one, because the voice, with writing or editing a book and writing a book is such a personal experience. I'm sure Lori could speak to that as well, of you're putting your heart on the page, and it can be very vulnerable and difficult to trust not only your editor, but all the readers with all this heart that you're putting into the book. So I feel like I get to know authors really well, just through their words, and then getting to talk to them. We often do calls, which I love doing, because it can be hard to just only interact with someone via email and be getting all these red marked, change this, fix this. So I try to do those calls too, so that I'm like, okay, so this is what we're fixing, but it's good. It's good. Hopefully you felt encouraged, Lori, during the process.
Yeah. I remember one of those calls in our rounds of editing, and you sent me the round of editing, and I was like, okay, let me have it for a week or 2 weeks and I'll get back to you. And you said, no, why don't we jump on a Zoom? We're going to do it together. I'm like, on the fly, like together right now? And she's like, yeah, we're going to do it right now. Or whenever they set the appointment. And we did, like, one thing at a time, rework it together. And that was super helpful. So anyway, but we'll get to that in a little bit with the rounds of editing. So what do you love most about being an editor?
Yeah, like I said, the working with authors is definitely my favorite part of it. I love the creativity that comes with, getting a new project and helping the author shape it. Sometimes it comes fully shaped and they have no questions and they don't need any feedback. And other times they're like, oh, I'm like 90% there, but I feel like, there's something missing. So I love those moments of getting to talk with them and saying, well, what if you tried this? And what if you added like some of the pieces that ended up in Journey of the Giant, like the travelogue? Love that. I love the writing space that's in there. and some of those
Yeah.
other kind of special features. I love the Camino sections that are added throughout. Oh, that was just one of my favorite parts. So
Yeah.
so that is a really fun part to get to talk with the author, brainstorm and ideate. I think the coaching part is really fun too. Of we get authors that are, first time authors like Lori, or we
Yeah.
get the super seasoned. They've written several books, and you just, give them a deadline and they run with it, and they don't
Mhm.
often want to communicate too much, and that's fine too. But I just love the different levels of coaching, and it is relationship, and that's such an
I feel
important part to me. It's
yeah.
just the personal
Yeah.
aspect of it.
I felt like we worked a lot together. I felt like there was a lot of feedback back and forth.
Yeah. Mhm.
And it was so good. Like together we made it what it became in the
Yeah.
end. So, and I think that's what really happened. So anyway, so walk us through the first time you encountered Journey with the Giant, when my agent, Ann Bio, sent you the manuscript. What do you remember about reading through the proposal the first time?
Yeah, I remember it. I mean, it has, like you said, it has changed so much. I remember the journal part that like the workbook that you had mentioned. I remember that there was just so much potential for, like, this is what, is happening right now with authors like John Mark Comer, who talk about having a spiritual mother or father. People are wanting to go deeper in their faith, and you can't do that alone. I mean, obviously, we need community, we need each other, we need peers and a church community. But learning from the saints and martyrs who have come before, those spiritual mothers and fathers, is really something that I think is becoming more and more of a practice. And so knowing all of that background, and then getting the proposal from Lori, just felt like, oh, this is such a zeitgeist kind of zeitgeist, but also very timeless. Like, it's gonna continue. It's what we call evergreen in the business of it's something that once shaped, is going to be a resource that just continues, which is why I often push Lori to be like, okay, let's not put too much of, like, yesterday this happened and tomorrow, like, really make it feel timeless, so that in hopefully 15 years, 20 years, people are still finding this book and picking it up, and being able to draw closer to God in that way, um, by walking with their own giant. So that was one of the first things that really stood out to me. And then, of course, the hook of Mr. Rogers. Everyone loves Mr. Rogers. Um, he often, pops up in culture every once in a while, whether with a new movie or a biography. But he's one of those sort of timeless figures as well. So he felt like, again, we're not gonna lose interest in Mr. Rogers. He's gonna just be this really beloved figure for years and years to come. So I remember talking to my team and, like, saying, there's something here. And we originally thought of it for, like I said, I'm the Ink and Willow editor, so that's our gift product. So we do devotionals and games and coloring books. So those things, like books that you more interact with more than just read. So originally we thought of it for, we'll strip down kind of what Lori proposed, and then make it more of like a gifty, like very interactive book. But then after talking to Lori more, it was like, there's the story of how what she encountered with walking with a giant. You need that, because you can't just give someone basically the workbook that you created and say, all right, go, without any sort of guidance. Like, okay, how do I do this? So the combination of her story of having gone through this and how much it changed her life is such an important piece to this journey, because I think it's unfamiliar to a lot of people. So being able to explain, this is what the journey is, this is why it's important, this is how to do it, but also this is how it changed me, is so important. So anyway, it was originally going to be for our Ink and Willow imprint. And this is what's so great about working for a publisher that has multiple imprints, that a lot of us editors are kind of working in different spaces. So I was able to pivot and say, okay, it's a Waterbrook, after we brought it to our pub board team, and I presented it, and we got a lot of enthusiasm, and, oh, Mr. Rogers, this is great. And so so all of that to say that it ends up on our Christian living line, which is more like imprint, Christian Living imprint of Waterbrook. So they could be for more readers, and it has more of that book feel rather than more of a journal kind of feel.
So, Leslie, how is this different than other books that you came across? What made it different than other spiritual formation books?
Like I said, I have until kind of recently really been working more on our gift line, so more of the devotionals, journals, the types of books that you interact with, or you might see at Anthropology or Target, the pretty ones with the you know, fun covers and things like that, tons of writing space. So I hadn't seen anything like this, and I know it may sound cliche to say, but that happens a lot where, and that's when we end up picking up books, is it something that's unique, and not like, "Okay, we've seen so many of this," but, this type of book. So this, Journey with a Giant was definitely, like I said, something we saw that readers were going to be gravitating toward, um, but also unique, something that hadn't necessarily been done in a wholesale way, or even like in other books recently. So I think there are books that cover the practice of walking with a giant, and some of the comps that you listed, Lori, were kind of older. They're books that have kind of just been around for a while, so it was time for a new one. It was time for one that kind of fit into our modern kind of vernacular and culture. And I love that, like I said, the tie to the Camino in Spain, that feels so unique. And that definitely set it apart for, a physical journey, but also a spiritual journey, and making that metaphor so clear in each month. So, yeah, I really can't compare it to, oh, it's just like this, or it's similar to that. Like, it just feels really different.
Yeah. So Leslie was the one that we sent the proposal to, and then she was the one that was assigned to work with me on the book. So we've been in connection since fall of 2023. That's how long this process has been going on. So yeah, it's really neat. So working on the book together, do you remember how, like, the changes that came into the manuscript from the time we started and then at the points where it shifted? Was there any significant points of change that you remember?
One piece that you're probably gonna cringe that I don't know if this was like a positive experience for you or kind of a hard one, but the really pushing you to minimize yourself and
Yes.
put the focus on the reader. And that is one that we often have to coach authors through, because it's so easy to write about ourselves in no matter what the book's about, especially something as personal as spiritual formation, or a personal experience that you've had walking with a giant. I mean, we want your story, but if it becomes all about your story, then it turns into a memoir, and that's just a different type of lesson, different type of book than what we were wanting for a book like this, because we really want it to be used practically. And memoirs are great. I love a good memoir, but it's hard to teach spiritual formation and spiritual practices in memoir form, because you really have to give readers those building blocks for them to take the lessons and put them into practice the way you did. Something that I've heard in spiritual formation circles is, don't rob someone else of their epiphany. Obviously we may, talk to someone and say, oh, that happened to me too, or, I have the same experience, or this is what you should do. This is how I solved XYZ. But that's our temptation, but it's so much better for the other person to sort of come to that epiphany of, I should try this. I don't know if you've ever experienced that for yourself, of someone sort of telling you what to do instead of you figuring it out. And the lesson sticks more when you figure it out. And I see that happening so much in your journey with Fred. I mean, Fred kind of told you different things, but you were learning those lessons in your life. Like, you would read about Fred, and then you'd have an experience with your husband or with family or friends, and then you would say, oh, I just learned something. And you had to have that sort of eureka moment yourself. You couldn't have just Fred tell you, or anyone else. tell you this is what you should do, this is how you should live. And that's the same way I think it is with scripture. I mean, we can know all of the Bible verses and commandments and the ways of the Beatitudes, ways of Jesus and all of that. But if we aren't living it, it's not gonna sink in and stick.
Yeah.
So all of that to say, that's why it's so important with spiritual formation books to really make sure that the reader is elevated more so than the author. And obviously the author is along the journey with him as a guide. But we really want the reader to have those moments that you had. So
Yeah. And I think we did that well. And that was a super big challenge. My articles in the book would range anywhere from 500 words to 1,000 words, and they're all equal 1 week. And I remember her coming back and going, oh, well, one of the edits was, okay, these all have to consistently be 500 words, and we got to change the structure. We need a Fred component in every, Fred's got to be 25% or 50%. You're 25%, and the application needs to be at least 25%. So when you came back with the developmental edits, I remember having that 1-hour meeting with the marketing team, and I was really excited about it at the time. Like, you guys were super positive, but when I looked at the manuscript and saw all the changes that were needed, like 45 of the 60 some articles, like weekly articles, needed rewrites. And I was almost paralyzed. I was like, I don't know if I can do this. But God led through, and you guys were really gracious with giving extensions after extensions. I don't know if that's normal to give that many.
It's normal. I mean, we've had people rewrite their entire book. So don't feel, and especially as a first-time writer, that's something too that it happens. We've definitely had authors, on a dev edit. That's why we do a dev edit first, is maybe you need to go back to the drawing board. It's going to be a good book, and you're going to get there. And you did. And now it's this great thing. And you can look back and be like, I did that. You did that.
Great. Well, and I remember one really important thing that you did that you added to the book was, I wanted to leave everything open-ended. I wanted to just share my story and let people come up with their own, like, how they're going to walk with their giant that month. And you brought in the component, like, we want you to lay out for the reader the materials you use with Fred, give them instructions in the beginning of the chapter, what to do, give them instructions at the end of the chapter, so that it's so anyone can pick this up. They don't have to overwork to do this. And that is so, now that I look at it, like, at the time I thought, oh, I don't want to be their Holy Spirit. But now I can see how, no, that is such a gift. Now they can apply that whether they use Fred or not for their giant. So that was a great thing. I tell people that going through this process was like getting a PhD. It's like, I didn't have to pay to get a PhD in writing. I actually wrote the book and learned about writing through this process. What a privilege. I said, I've got this team of like English professors working with me, teaching me how to write a book. That's what I got. I mean, shoot, that's
amazing. I'm glad it was a good experience. It was super every time we have to send red edits, we're like, okay, I'm sorry, we're gonna fix this, but it is all in service of you as the author and making the book the best it can be. And that's our heart and our passion. And we want this to be something you're proud of in years, and not look back and go, oh, I wish I changed that, or wish it, it needs to be the best it can be.
Yeah. You help us to see what we don't see. And that's the gift of it. That's why a team is such a gift in writing a book. So anyway, well, that's so neat. So now that the book is complete, Leslie, how do you feel seeing it in its final form? How does that feel to you?
I always like I said, I love working with authors. I love the creative process, but there is something really special about even seeing the first, you probably remember this too, Lori, seeing the first time that it's typeset, the way that it will appear in a book. That is such a powerful moment. And it's a real book. It's not just a Word document anymore. It's having the page numbers, and then this one having all those special features with the journal pages and the questions and the little footprints with Fred, and all those special kind of little details are so fun to see in print. And then I have just the galley. We don't have final copies yet, but even seeing and I don't know if you're going to talk about the cover process, but even like coming up with the cover together um, and kind of making sure we're following what Lori's vision, and then I work with our design team to make sure that, everyone is sort of on board on the same page is such a fun process as well.
Yeah, it was really neat. And I have to say, my experience was wonderful. So what are you most excited about readers to experience as they read through Journey with a Giant?
Yeah, I'm just really excited for readers to discover this book, to discover the practice. Way, way back when we were still, I think, early in the dev edit stage, I remember having a call with you, Lori, and telling you I was reading this and got so excited about the practice that I was like, I want to have a giant. I'm going to look at William Wilberforce because I just think he's such a cool person. And so like getting a biography and reading that on the side and just like, this is such a cool practice. So, again, it's one of those ones that you feel like, yeah, of course. I mean, cloud of witnesses. Why haven't we talked about this more? But then, yeah, practically, I'm so glad that you mentioned that that one of the changes was that we put in more of those practical pieces for readers, because many people may see, I mean, you've done this so many times, Lori, that it's like, oh yeah, find a giant. I got it. I can do this myself. But a lot of people are going to come to this and say, okay, what do I do first? And having the book almost like a blueprint of whether they choose Fred Rogers or someone else, this is how you do month one. And it's so approachable. Something that is difficult in a lot of self-help or spiritual formation type books is it's aspirational rather than realistic. And I love that this process felt very approachable the whole time. And there are even months in there that you build in that are just enjoy. To take a step back, and it's right when you might be getting overwhelmed and exhausted. It's kind of in the middle in that summer season. Is just okay, now just have fun and kind of take the stress off of yourself. And it's so approachable. You can just do, I think the process you suggested a lot of times was a few chapters for the whole month, not like a whole book necessarily. So I'm just excited for readers to discover the practice and to deepen their walk with God through this practice of walking with a giant, whether they pick, Fred Rogers and kind of do it along with you in the book, or pick their own giant, or do it multiple times. And I'm really excited about this launch team and how you, Lori, are sort of encouraging Journey with a Giant groups and building that out more. That'd be so cool to see kind of a national wave of churches doing small groups that are focused around this practice, and even better if they use this book in particular. So, yeah, that's just such an exciting prospect, and it makes me really proud to have been part of this with you, Lori, because it's such a good practice, and definitely see the fruit of it in people's lives.
Well, Leslie, thank you for being with us tonight. This has been so valuable. Only you can tell your story, and that's what I love about it is you bring that piece of share with us how you felt, what Penguin saw, what it meant to you, what it was like going through all the editing rounds. And I just really appreciate, and I'm thankful that God connected us to shape Journey with a Giant. That's such a sensitive thing for an author. When you bring your book, you have to make sure that the person who works on it with you really has a heart for it. I remember going to that first meeting, you're all nervous about it. And one of the main things the author wants to know is, does this person really get it? Or are they going to try to change it? Or will it be so different when I'm done that it's not really what God gave me? But it wasn't like that at all. We made it together what it is. And I'm super thankful for that. And, just really appreciate that God put us together. So thanks for your time tonight, Leslie. And we'll let you know
for having me.
Yes, when the podcast episode comes out, we will definitely let you know, and we'll be excited to share it. So yeah, have a good night.
Yeah, you too.
Well, Lori, such a great interview with Leslie.
I loved hearing about her upbringing. That was a surprise to me, was, her having that connection with her grandparents to owning a publishing house, and that, as a young person, she started editing a little bit. And
Yeah.
I love spotting like the weavings of God through people's lives all the way back when you
Mhm.
look at what they're doing now in their callings.
Yeah.
That scripture in Psalm 139 that we are perfectly and wonderfully made. Um,
Mm.
and I just see that in that little tidbit of her story that I didn't realize. And it was just really,
Yeah.
that was cool.
Yeah, like been in publishing her whole life, and it's so crazy to hear how somebody moves. And looking back,
Hmm.
as she told her story, how God was moving even at that time as a,
Yeah.
preteen,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
starting her down this path. So
Yes.
yeah, it was really
Uh-huh.
cool. Well, it was also cool to hear how you guys how she really came alongside you and
Hmm.
started working with you to develop it. Like, yes, you had a great
Hmm.
idea and you had a lot written. In fact, I know
Uh-huh.
we talked about how
Yeah.
much you had written and rewritten during the
Yeah.
process a little bit. But,
Hmm.
it was cool to hear how the trust and the collaboration really developed throughout the
Hmm.
process because
Yeah.
you had to trust that she had um, the best interest of the book and your best interest even at mind for the story that you had within you. And it
Hmm.
really, yes, the story was yours. God gave you this story and
Yeah.
this calling, if you will,
Hmm.
but he
Yeah.
brought you into relationship with Waterbrook, right? And
Hmm.
Leslie Calhoun to help you develop the story into what it is today. The way that happened
Yeah.
was just so
Uh-huh.
cool to hear.
Yeah, it was such a gentle process. And like I told her, I never felt like my concept was lost. It was just shaped in a really powerful way. And it was neat because in the beginning, I brought the book to them and they loved the Mr. Rogers piece and they wanted Mr. Rogers to kind of be the forefront. And I never wanted that because I always thought Mr. Rogers is just an illustration of this practice. He's not the focal point, he's just an illustration. But over
Yeah.
time, what happened was the publisher all of a sudden had a revelation. Oh my gosh, this isn't about Mr. Rogers. This is about this practice. So they shifted views and it never affected the actual writing of the book. So it wasn't like I had to stand up and go like, no, we're making changes that aren't what I want to see or isn't what this book is about. But
Yeah.
God just worked it out gently, and over time, it did shift into it's about the practice, and Mr.
Yeah.
Rogers is the nuance of that practice. So
Yeah.
that was wonderful. I love the part that she shared too at the end when we talked to her about her heart for the book, and then what their meetings look like when their team gets together. And
Yeah.
I can see this with the people on staff that I know now, that when they get together, their heart is that these books will draw people closer to God, that have a relationship with Him. Those that are farther away, that they'll be drawn closer. And ones that even aren't even believers yet, that they'll come into relationship with Jesus through the books. And that means everything when they hear from
Yeah.
someone that's what their books did. And that just really resonated with me because I've always felt like, and I've heard from people who I talked to about this concept with, the people that are wanting to read this book are in those three categories. They're people that are already Christians, they're people that are farther away, and they're people that don't know him yet, but have that instinctual longing, like, I want to be more connected with God and my purpose. So yeah, and I love the name of this our episode here. We called it Behind the Scenes. And when we look at something like this, when I was writing this and when I was not knowing how to get it out into the world, I thought, God was behind the scenes. We just shared about the behind the scenes of Journey with a Giant in the
Yeah.
publishing, but God was so much behind the scenes, lining all these things up that were impossible for me as a brand new writer to ever figure out. And there he was. He was working.
Yeah. Sure was. Well, before we wrap up today, I want to speak to what's coming in the next episode because Lori really just spoke into that. So in the next episode, Lori and I will sit down for a deeply personal conversation, one that goes beyond the writing process and into the heart of calling. You've heard about Journey with the Giant as a book, but this time you'll hear how it became a calling. We'll talk about how the idea was first stirred, not as Lori's ambition, but really as a whisper from the Holy Spirit, confirmed again and again through the people around her. It's a story of obedience, perseverance, and discernment. and of what happens when God places a message on your heart and asks you to carry it forward, even when it costs you something. This conversation is really a soul and story revelation. It's an intimate look at how God has shaped Lori through every step of this journey and what it means to steward a message that ultimately belongs to Him. You won't want to miss it. Thanks for being with us, friend.